The Freewell K2 is an all-in-one Frankenstein's monster of a variable ND, circular polarizer, and drop-in effects filter system all at the same time. And there have already been dozens and dozens of videos on this, so I don't really want to rehash what has already been done, and no doubt done better. In this video, I really wanted to show you some results that you could expect to get, some stuff that I've shot around town in the last month or so. And I will do a test also, a more controlled test, so that you can take a look at color cast and maybe some sharpness problems, if there are any. Spoilers, there's not really any. I also need to mention that Freewell did send me the filter kit, but they are not sponsoring this video aside from giving me this, and they don't have any input into the video. They're not going to see it before you do. Let's roll the first sequence. All these shots were filmed with the Sony a7S III and the Sony 70-200 f2.8 G Master version 2 God lens. It's quite a lens. And the Freewell K2 variable ND 1 through 5. There were a few shots also with the Sony 20mm f1.8 G lens. Who needs a variable ND filter? Anyone who shoots video and cares about cinematic motion blur. If you're getting paid to make content for other people, you should probably care. If you're posting vlogs to YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, it probably doesn't matter. And that's not an insult, it's just most people who watch probably won't notice, or if they do, they won't care if the motion blur or lack thereof looks weird. I don't mean cinematic in the overused YouTube way, which at this point doesn't really mean much, as it's used to convey so many different ideas that are so divorced from their origins, it's just cliche. But what I mean by cinematic is the traditional use of a certain amount of motion blur in films. You often hear it referred to on YouTube as the 180-degree rule, although it's not a rule. It's a convention, but it's broken all the time for reasons both practical and creative. What a variable ND allows you to do is have control over your shutter speed and therefore your motion blur, so that you don't have to sacrifice it to control your exposure. Essentially, your shutter speed is a parameter to control motion blur and nothing else. Oh, and aperture too. An ND frees your aperture and your shutter from exposure duties and allows them to be used for creative purposes. This next sequence I shot with the Sigma 50mm f1.4, and I shot at f1.4 on a bright sunny day because I wanted to test the 6 to 9 stop ND. So that's what you're going to see in this next sequence. I wouldn't normally stand in a long line on a blazing hot summer day to eat atomically spicy fried chicken, but I thought the Nashville Hot Chicken Festival could be a good chance to get some footage for the K2 video. I had an idea to make a little mini doc, well, at least a vloggy thing, but the event is kind of an ordeal. We showed up at about 11:15, and the event kicks off at 10:30. The lines were already Disney World. Only about 6 chicken shops showed up. 3 mainstays, Prince's, the progenitor from which all things hot chicken spring forth. Bolton's, early adopters that added fried fish to the mix. and Hattie B's white folks who were quick to cash in and franchise. The line for Prince's was too long. Hattie B's, no thanks. The line for Bolton's was manageable. My mom and I stood in that line for 2 hours and 45 minutes. No shade. And when we finally got our chicken on a stick, a concession because the tenders we ordered were going to take even longer, there was nowhere to sit. Hindsight being 2020, we should have brought folding chairs, but we didn't know how badly provisioned the event would be and how underprepared or overmatched the vendors would be for the crowds. Suffice to say, I wasn't in the mood to do a lot of filming. I did enjoy my chicken on a stick, but I was sunburned, mouth burned, and the next day, butt burned. Nashville Hot Chicken is an experience. It's absolutely worth it. But the Nashville Hot Chicken Festival is not the event in which to experience it. This last sequence also was shot with the Sigma 50mm f1.4, but I wasn't concerned with keeping it 1.4, so I just changed the aperture as I saw fit, and I used the variable ND 1 through 5. It would be a faux pas if I didn't at least show you the system and how it works and kind of what it does. So you can expect to get this case, I believe, in the retail versions. This started out on maybe one of the crowdfunding sites. I don't know if it was Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever, but I'm pretty sure this will be the retail kit. And inside, you get the filter system, which is this behemoth right here. You get, this has the 6 to 9 stop ND already installed. And then you also, of course, get the 1 to 5 ND. And then behind all that, you have the adapter rings. It comes with a 67, 72, 77, and 82 millimeter adapter. So if your lenses are those 4 sizes, then you should be covered. But Freewell also sells additional sizes starting around 52 millimeters, I believe, and then on up into 67. And they're $20 a piece. So they are a little bit expensive, but for what are essentially stepping rings, I'm hoping that they are going to last longer than a lot of the cheap stepping rings that you can find online that I've used over the years. And I really hate these because they tend to, the threads tend to wear out really quickly. They won't tighten onto the lens, or they'll over tighten and get stuck on the lens. So these are never ideal in my opinion. So I'm hoping that the stepping rings that Freewell is offering are going to be higher quality. The good thing about the system here is that the whole filter system itself is magnetic. So the only thing that screws onto the lens is the adapter. But then once you have that onto the lens, then the rest of the system just kind of sticks to the adapter itself. So you'll never have the problem of the actual filters becoming loose or, you know, the threads wearing out on them because there's no threads. I'm going to grab the 72 millimeter and try to do this with the camera if I can remember. And of course, this is just going to thread onto the front of the lens. Once you have that in place, I'm going to kind of disassemble this so we can see all the pieces. It does have a back cap, which I already took off. There's these 2 little latches or buttons, whatever you want to call them, that you hold in, and then you place the cap in there, and now the cap's in place. And then just hold down the buttons and the cap pops out. On the front is the cap, and the cap is magnetic. These filters are reversible. The other side is a circular polarizer, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. That side is not magnetized, by the way. So here is the 6-to-9 stop. And I'm just going to pull that off. There is a VND base, variable neutral density base, and that clips in to the filter holder. I guess you could call this ring, we'll call this ring the filter holder. In order for the variable ND to work, so 1 to 5 and 6 to 9, you do need the base ND. If you don't have the base ND in place, then the variable NDs don't work. Like I mentioned, the reverse side is circular polarizer. The 6 to 9 has circular polarizer and ND32, and the 1 to 5 is just circular polarizer. It doesn't have any ND on it. But they do not work if you have the ND base in place. So that's something to keep note of this system. Okay, so we'll pop in the base ND and we'll take the 1 to 5 stop, and you need to make sure that you have it facing the right way. It does say 1 to 5 and the other side says CPL. So make sure that the 1 to 5 is facing outward. You will know also if it's backwards because on the top of the filter are the numbers that indicate the number of stops of filtration. So if those numbers are facing you the right way, then you know that the filter is facing the right way. So just rotate that until you hear that click, and then you will have stops. So it'll have a hard stop at 1 and a hard stop at 5. And right here on the top of the filter is a little arrow. So I like to have that arrow really on the, just kind of at the top of my lens so I can see it. So once you have all that in place, again, hold down these 2 little latches here, and then you just drop that onto the adapter. And now it should be in place. They have these thumb screws on either side as well that you can tighten. Once you have it oriented the way you want, you can tighten down these thumb screws, and now the whole thing will be stuck in place. It won't rotate, and you can be sure that it's secure. But it is technically secure without the thumb screws in place, but it will rotate. I'm not going to get into all the details about how these variable NDs work, not only the Freewell, but basically every other type of variable ND out there. They all have 2 circular polarizers, and there's different types of circular polarizers. Philip Bloom made a very in-depth video about the Freewell K2, and he goes into depth about how these things work. And he tested out like dozens and dozens of them to figure out how they're working and why you're getting color casts with some and not others. I don't want to get into all that. Check out Philip Bloom's video. It's amazing, of course. But the great thing about the Freewell K2, the color cast is what it is. It's very mild, and I'll show that to you in a little bit later. But it doesn't matter what angle, where the angle of light is. So you can change the direction of the camera, you can change in relation to the light source, and the color cast will remain the same. Whereas other systems, depending on how they work, you will get a different color cast depending on the angle of the light. So that's the great thing about this one. I put the camera into aperture priority and auto ISO in the hopes that it would adjust the exposure while I increased the ND, and for the most part it did, but it struggled once we got up into ND 7, 8, and 9. In my opinion, the color shift from the base ND and then stops 1 through 5 is pretty minimal. They look very close to no ND, and then the color shift with the ND 6 through 9 is more pronounced. The good thing though is that it remains pretty consistent. So even as you add on 7, 8, and 9 stops of ND, it remains the same. And sorry that the shot, got pretty dark there, but we'll see in the outdoor test that stops 6 through 9 remain pretty consistent. But there is a bigger shift in color between the ND 1 through 5 and the ND 6 through 9. I don't think that it's a huge problem unless you're trying to mix shots between the 1 through 5 and the 6 through 9 ND, because the color cast is a little bit different. And having a color cast with a variable neutral density filter is, in my opinion, to be expected. And what's more important is that the color cast remains consistent. And I think that's what Freewell has done here, is giving you a very consistent result with stops 1 through 5 and a consistent result with stops 6 through 9. And as far as I can tell, unless you do extreme pixel peeping, there's really no loss in sharpness, contrast, etc. using these filters. At the top of the video, I mentioned that not only do you have variable ND and circular polarizers in the system, but you also have drop-in effects filters. And Freewell just sent me this one here. This is a snow mist, and their drop-in filters look like this. Snow mist is a diffusion filter, so it's similar to something like a Black Pro mist. And this is only a 1/8 strength, so it's very mild. And in honesty, I had not really used it. I kind of forgot about it. But how they work is on either side is a little door that just opens up like that. So there opens up a little slot in the back of the filter system, and then there's one on the other side as well. So you can open up those, and then you just drop in the effect filter. So that's pretty cool in that you have variable ND, you've got circular polarizers, and you have drop-in effects filters. Of course, you can only put in one effect filter at a time. It already is a little bit big and bulky, so adding more would just make this whole thing bigger and bulkier. I think that's everything. As always, I appreciate you watching the video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you know where they go. And maybe check out one of these videos that's floating around my head somewhere.